The FIFA World Cup doesn't just deliver unforgettable matches, it also introduces the world to countries many people have never heard of. Cape Verde is one of them, leaving millions of fans asking, "Wait, where is that?" Be honest, had you ever heard of Cape Verde before seeing its name on the World Cup stage? Let us know in the comments because you're definitely not alone. But here's the surprising part. Cape Verde's biggest attraction isn't just football. From breathtaking beaches and dramatic volcanic landscapes to a vibrant culture in the heart of the Atlantic Ocean, this hidden island nation has so much more to offer. Today, let's discover why Cape Verde might just be one of the world's best-kept travel secrets. Along the coast, black lava rock cuts into calm turquoise lagoons, the water glowing bright against the dark stone. Boa Vista is the easternmost island in Cape Verde, a flat, sun-baked stretch of desert and volcanic rock rising out of the Atlantic. Inland, the land opens into dry plains, dotted with low scrub and the occasional lone hill on the horizon. Closer to shore, the capital Sal Island spreads out low and colorful, its rooftops facing the sea. Small wooden fishing boats sit anchored just offshore, bobbing gently in the shallow bay. In town, painted shopfronts line the streets, the Cape Verde flag flying over stalls selling local crafts. Away from the coast, roofless stone houses stand abandoned, worn smooth by decades of wind. Dirt tracks cut straight through the scrubland, leading toward the island's dune fields. At the heart of Boa Vista lies the Viana Desert, its sand carried in from the Sahara by centuries of trade winds, piling into dunes that rise up to 50 meters high. From there, a paved road stretches back out across the desert, carrying travelers toward Boa Vista's next stretch of open coastline. Before we head to the next spot, here's a fun question. What is the national dish of Cape Verde? Comment your answer. Thick clouds roll over the ridgelines here, wrapping the peaks in fog before drifting slowly out to sea. Santo Antão is Cape Verde's most mountainous island, known locally as Ilha das Montanhas, the Island of Mountains. Along the coast, waves crash hard against black volcanic rock, throwing white spray high into the air. A hiker pauses on the cliffside, camera in hand, watching the ocean churn far below. Inland, the land drops away into steep, narrow valleys carved out by centuries of wind and water on volcanic rock. Farmers have cut these slopes into terraces, growing sugarcane, bananas, and coffee on ground that looks almost too steep to farm. Narrow paths wind across the hillsides, connecting fields and clusters of small stone houses. Villages here cling to the mountainside, their rooftops scattered across the green like they were dropped from above. Much of the island's sugarcane goes into grog, the traditional rum distilled in the Paul Valley. At the island's highest point, Tope de Coroa rises nearly 2,000 meters above the Atlantic below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our interesting videos. Perched high on a cliff in Santo Antão, Fontainhas is one of Cape Verde's most photographed villages. Its houses, painted in yellow, pink, and blue, cling to the edge of a drop hundreds of meters deep. Around them, green terraces climb the mountainside, carved into slopes that seem almost too steep to farm. A single narrow road winds up from Ponta do Sol, the only way in by vehicle. From above, Fontainhas looks like a handful of color scattered across the cliffside, framed by ocean on one side and stone peaks on the other. We worked really hard to make these videos, and of course, your support is a huge motivation. If you love us, you can scan the QR code here to buy us a cup of coffee. Sal is Cape Verde's flattest island, and its most visited, a place built almost entirely around sun, wind, and water. Along the southern coast, dozens of kites fill the sky above Kite Beach, one of the world's top spots for kite surfing. Riders carve across the turquoise shallows, powered by winds that blow steady almost every day of the year. Some of the sport's biggest names, including former world champions Mitu Montero and Ayrton Cozzolino, learned to ride on these same waters. Just offshore, small fishing boats sit anchored in the calm, glassy bay near Santa Maria. Along the coastline, the water shifts through shades of green and blue over a shallow coral reef. Rows of beachfront resorts line the white sand, backed by Sal's nearly 350 days of sunshine each year. To the west, the volcanic cone of Monte Leao rises out of the flat, dry landscape. On the northern coast, waves crash into a black lava pool at Buracona, where sunlight can turn the water an electric blue around midday. A small cafe perches right on the cliff's edge there, overlooking the endless churn of the Atlantic below. This stretch of coast on Sal is home to one of Cape Verde's most recognizable beach clubs, built right out over the water. A round white building sits on the rocks just offshore, connected to the sand by a long wooden pier. It's called Bikini Beach Club, set on a man-made lagoon about 40 meters out into the Atlantic. Guests cross the walkway to reach its pool and sun loungers, with ocean on every side. Behind it, the beach stretches out in long rows of umbrellas, backed by the resorts of Santa Maria. The club sits alongside some of Sal's biggest hotels, including the Meliá Tortuga and Meliá Dunas resorts. From above, the turquoise lagoon gives way to darker, deeper water just past the rocks. Along the shoreline, dark volcanic rock breaks up the pale sand in long, uneven lines. Further inland, dry desert scrubland and open dunes stretch out behind the beach. As the sun sets, the resort's lights begin to glow along the water's edge. If you've been here before, comment number 1. If not, comment number 5. On the northeast coast of Sal lies Pedra de Lume, a village built entirely around salt. Its pans sit inside the crater of an extinct volcano, ringed by dry, reddish hills. Salt production here began in the late 18th century, making Pedra de Lume one of the island's first settlements. The crater floor sits below sea level, the lowest point anywhere in Cape Verde. Seawater seeps in through the volcanic rock and slowly evaporates under the desert sun, leaving sheets of salt behind. The ponds shift color as they dry, some turning a deep mineral pink, others crystal white. Workers still gather salt by hand along some of the shallow pools. The pans themselves are laid out in a neat grid, divided by narrow dirt paths cutting across the crater floor. The water's mineral concentration is so high that floating takes no effort at all, drawing visitors to swim here much like in the Dead Sea. The checkerboard of white, pink, and pale green pools spreads across the crater floor, framed by the mountains beyond. Waves break against long stretches of black volcanic sand, a stark contrast to the deep blue Atlantic beyond. São Vicente is one of Cape Verde's driest islands, its landscape shaped almost entirely by wind, rock, and the sea. Much of the interior is flat and dusty, broken only by the dark cones of extinct volcanoes rising from the plain. At the island's highest point, Monte Verde climbs to nearly 750 meters, its slopes often wrapped in fog, and home to some of the island's only green vegetation. Down below, the city of Mindelo curves around Porto Grande Bay, a natural harbor formed inside the collapsed crater of an old volcano. Fishing boats and sailboats fill the water here, framed by the dry hills surrounding the town. On the island's western tip stands the Farol de Dona Amelia, a lighthouse built in 1894 to mark the channel between São Vicente and neighboring Santo Antão. Along the coast, small coves like Baía das Gatas cut into the black cliffs, sheltering calm, dark sand beaches. Even in this dry terrain, a few valleys stay green year-round, fed by narrow streams that support small farms. Barren volcanic rock on one side, pockets of life clinging on wherever there's water. Which region are you curious about? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you there in the next video. Santiago is Cape Verde's largest island, home to half the nation's population and shaped by two volcanic mountain ranges running through its interior. Deep, dry canyons cut across the landscape, red rock giving way to pockets of green wherever water collects. Further north, the slopes around Serra Malagueta turn lush and cloud-covered, some of the wettest ground anywhere in the archipelago. On the coast stands the Fortaleza Real de São Felipe, built in 1593 to guard Cidade Velha, the first European settlement in Cape Verde. Monte Brianda is one of the dramatic volcanic peaks rising from the highlands of Santiago, Cape Verde's largest island. Its jagged, twin-horn summit stands sharp against the sky, shaped by centuries of erosion into solid volcanic rock. Below, the slopes turn a deep red-orange, terraced by small farms and a scatter of houses clinging to the mountainside. It sits within the same mountainous stretch as Serra Malagueta and Pico de Antonia, part of the volcanic backbone running through the island's interior. The Atlantic stretches out on every side, with the outline of a neighboring island visible on a clear day. Pico do Fogo is the highest point in Cape Verde, a near-perfect volcanic cone rising to 2,829 meters. Its name means fire in Portuguese, and it remains the youngest and most active volcano in the archipelago. The last major eruption began in November 2014 and lasted 88 days, sending lava flows across the caldera floor. Streams of molten rock crept forward at a slow, steady pace, swallowing roads, farmland, and entire neighborhoods in their path. Around the volcano stands the Bordera, a crater rim with walls up to a kilometer high, formed when an earlier version of the mountain collapsed on itself. Hikers walking its ridge can look down into the caldera on one side and out toward the open Atlantic on the other. Inside that caldera lies Chão das Caldeiras, home to around 700 people and the highest village anywhere in Cape Verde. Its houses sit directly on old lava flows, rebuilt again and again after each new eruption buries what came before. Despite the risk, farmers here grow grapes in the volcanic soil, producing the only wine made anywhere in the country. Smaller cinder cones dot the caldera floor, remnants of past eruptions scattered across the black plain. Closer to the summit, the ground turns to loose volcanic ash and jagged rock, steaming faintly where gases still escape. Pico de Fogo looks less like a mountain settling into stillness than a volcano simply pausing between eruptions. The content of this video is compiled from various sources. Please leave a comment below if you find any inaccuracies. Mindelo is the cultural capital of Cape Verde, a port city built around the wide, sheltered waters of Porto Grande Bay. Sailboats and fishing boats fill the harbor, framed by the dry, jagged mountains that ring the city. The bay itself sits inside an old volcanic crater, one of the best natural harbors anywhere in the Atlantic. Founded in 1793, Mindelo grew quickly after 1838 when it became a coal depot refueling ships crossing the ocean. That history left its mark on the city's colonial architecture, with pastel facades and tiled rooftops lining the streets below. Mindelo is best known today as the birthplace of Cesaria Evora, the singer who carried Morna music to audiences around the world. Its streets stay busy year-round, but nowhere more than during Carnival, one of the most colorful celebrations in Africa. Just outside downtown, Laguna Beach offers calm turquoise water within walking distance of the city center. Mindelo's rooftops spread out in a dense grid, climbing gently up the hillsides that surround the bay. Beyond the harbor, dry volcanic peaks rise on every side, a reminder of how little separates this city from the wild interior of Sal Vicente. Santa Maria sits on the southern tip of Sal, its name attached to one of Cape Verde's most famous beaches. The beach stretches roughly 8 kilometers along the coast, calm turquoise water lapping against pale sand the entire way. At its center stands the pontoon, a wooden pier first built in the 1800s to load salt onto ships bound for Brazil. Santa Maria itself was founded in 1830 for that same salt trade, before the industry collapsed after Brazil raised import taxes in 1887. Today, the pier serves a different purpose, doubling as a fishing dock, where boats unload their catch each morning. Small wooden fishing boats bob in the shallows just offshore, scattered across the bay in reds, blues, and whites. Cape Verde's first resort hotel, the Morabeza, opened here in 1967, launching the island's tourism industry. Since then, hotels and beachfront developments have spread along the shoreline, turning a quiet salt town into Sal's busiest destination. From above, the town's low, pastel-colored rooftops stretch back from the water in a loose grid. Even with all the growth, the rhythm of the town still centers on that same stretch of sand and the pier that first put it on the map. It was the first European colonial settlement built anywhere in the tropics. Cidade Velha is the oldest town in Cape Verde, founded in 1462 as Ribeira Grande by Portuguese settlers. The town sits where a small river meets the sea, its black sand beach curling below rows of white and orange-roofed houses. Above it, the Fortaleza Real de São Felipe stands on a plateau built in 1593 to defend the settlement from pirate raids. Its thick stone walls still trace the edge of the cliff, looking down over the valley and out toward the ocean. English privateer Francis Drake was among those the fortress was built to keep out. Below the fort, the old town still follows its original layout, with Rua Banana considered the oldest street in Cape Verde. In the main square, a stone pillory dating to 1512 marks a darker chapter, when Cidade Velha was a major hub in the transatlantic slave trade. Inland, the valley opens into a landscape of red volcanic cliffs and deep green vegetation, cut through by dry riverbeds. Small villages sit tucked into the folds of these hills, connected by narrow roads winding along the cliff edges. In 2009, UNESCO named Cidade Velha a World Heritage Site, recognizing it as the birthplace of Cape Verde's history. Ponta do Sol is the northernmost town in all of Cape Verde, perched where Santo Antão's coastline meets the open Atlantic. Steep volcanic cliffs rise straight from the sea here, framing a small cluster of houses along the water's edge. Just outside town lies the runway of Agostinho Neto Airport, closed since a fatal crash in 1999 and now sitting empty. Today, Ponta do Sol serves mainly as a starting point for hikers heading toward Fontainhas and the island's dramatic northern coastline. Colorful rooftops stretch across the valley floor, backed by the jagged peaks that dominate the island's interior. Assomada is Santiago's second-largest town, spread across a plateau at around 550 meters above sea level. The town sits about 26 kilometers northwest of Praia, in the heart of Santiago's agricultural region. At its center, Assomada's main square gathers around a church and a scattering of colonial-era buildings. The town's real draw is its market, considered one of the largest and busiest anywhere on the island. Vendors sell fresh mangoes, papayas, and root vegetables grown in the surrounding highlands. To the north lies Serra Malagueta Natural Park, its green slopes rising just beyond the edge of town. From the surrounding hillsides, Assomada's rooftops spread out in a dense, uneven patchwork below the peaks. Despite its size, the town still moves at the unhurried pace of Santiago's rural interior. On Sal's northeast coast lies Pedra de Lume, where salt pans fill the crater of an extinct volcano. Seawater seeps in through the volcanic rock and evaporates under the sun, leaving thick crusts of salt behind. The ponds shift color as they dry, some turning a deep mineral pink, others crystal white. Salt has been harvested here since the late 18th century, giving the island of Sal its name. The crater's grid of colored pools spreads out beneath the dry, sloping hills that surround it. Jagged volcanic peaks cut straight up through the clouds. This is Santo Antão, Cape Verde's most mountainous island. Formed entirely from volcanic rock, its highest point, Tope de Coroa, rises 1,979 meters above the Atlantic. A mountain range once considered impassable splits the island in two, north from south, until a road finally crossed it. Below the ridgelines, steep valleys turn green. Farmers cut terraces into the slopes because there's nowhere flat to plant. It's slow, manual work, but it's kept these hillsides farmed for generations. Villages cling to whatever ledge the mountain allows, tucked into folds barely wide enough for a road. Along the coast near Ponta do Sol, the road runs carved right into the cliffside, with the Atlantic dropping straight down on one side. Small fishing settlements wait in the coves below, their painted houses facing harbors most of the island can't reach by land. Fog rolls through constantly here, swallowing entire peaks and releasing them again minutes later. In the Paul Valley, sugarcane still gets pressed into grog, the local spirit distilled the same way for generations. Green hills roll down to the water here. This is Tarrafal, on the northern tip of Santiago, Cape Verde's largest island. The town sits right on Tarrafal Bay at the foot of Monte Graciosa, a hill that climbs 643 meters above the coast. Its name comes from the tarraf, a hardy shrub that grows along sandy stretches of the Cape Verdean coastline. Down at the water, the beach curves in a long, sheltered arc, the largest stretch of sand on the entire island. It ranks as the second best beach in the whole country, out of 62 along Cape Verde's coast. Palm trees lean in over the sand, and the water stays calm enough for families to wade in without worry. Fishing boats rest on the shore in rows, painted in reds and blues, waiting for the next run out to sea. Out past the rocks, small boats and sailboats sit anchored in the bay, barely moving with the tide. The town itself climbs the hillside behind the beach, whitewashed walls, orange-tiled roofs, narrow streets winding uphill. Around 70 kilometers north of Praia, Tarrafal still feels like its own world, sheltered by the mountains at its back. The bay is also a stop for whales and dolphins passing offshore, drawing divers and boat tours out from the harbor. Locals fish these waters the same way they always have, by hand, from small painted vessels close to shore. In the late afternoon light, the green hills, blue water, and orange roofs settle into something that looks almost too calm to be real. Colorful rooftops spill down toward the water. This is Praia, the capital and largest city of Cape Verde, on the island of Santiago. Its name simply means beach in Portuguese. though the city has grown into a sprawling capital of nearly 160,000 people. At its center sits the Plateau, a historic district built on a rocky rise about 37 meters above the port below. Praia became the seat of colonial government in 1770, and by the 19th century its streets were laid out in a formal grid, lined with colonial buildings. That grid still holds today, with Praça Alexandre Albuquerque as its main square, framed by the City Hall and Cathedral. Below the plateau, roads curve along the coastline, tracing the harbor that makes Praia Cape Verde's second busiest port. Just past downtown, the Sucupira market spreads out with narrow aisles, selling everything from produce to imported goods. On the coast, waves roll steadily into beaches like Praia and Quebra Canela, right at the edge of the city. Newer neighborhoods climb the hills around the historic core, spreading further out with each passing year. Black volcanic rock meets the Atlantic here. This is Buracona, on the northwest coast of Sal, about 5 kilometers north of the fishing village of Palmera. The whole coastline sits inside a protected landscape, with the cone of Monte Leste rising 269 meters just behind it. Waves hit these rocks constantly, carving them into sharp edges and hollow pools over centuries. Buracona is better known by another name, the Blue Eye, for a cave hidden just off the shore. It started as a lava tube, formed when molten rock drained out and left the tunnel empty. Over time, the ocean wore through its roof, opening a hole straight down to the water below. Around midday, when the sun lines up just right, light drops through that opening and turns the water a brilliant, glowing blue. The cave itself is small, only about 9 meters across, with the opening dropping some 25 meters to the sea. Next to it, a natural pool carved into the rock offers calmer water to swim in when the tide allows. Out on the cliff, a small lookout marks the edge of it all, with nothing beyond but black rock and open ocean. Turquoise water fades into white sand for miles here. This is Praia de Santa Monica in the southwest of Boa Vista, Cape Verde. The nearest village, Povoação Velha sits about 5 kilometers north, itself one of the oldest settlements on the island. Sources vary on the exact number, but Santa Monica is widely considered one of the longest beaches in the entire Cape Verde archipelago, stretching well over 10 kilometers. There's no development along most of it, just sand, water, and low scrub running to the horizon. The beach borders the Morro de Areia Nature Reserve, a protected stretch of coast known for its birds and nesting sea turtles. Waves roll in steadily here, sometimes gentle, sometimes strong enough to draw experienced surfers and kite surfers. Nearby, dunes rise as high as 50 meters, spilling sand right down toward the shoreline. In 2024, Travel Plus Leisure ranked this beach among the 21 most beautiful in the world. There are no crowds to speak of. Most days it's just footprints and wind. The color of the water shifts with the light, moving from deep blue to pale green as it nears the sand. Turtles come ashore here to nest, drawn back to the same stretch of coast generation after generation. At this scale, the beach barely registers as a single place. It feels more like its own quiet horizon. A single rock spire rises straight out of the green. This is the Ribeira da Torre Valley, in the northeast of Santo Antão. The stream that carved it starts near Rabo Curto in the mountains above the Cova crater, flowing down through the village of Soxo before joining the Ribeira Grande River. That needle-like formation near Soxo is known as Lombo de Pico, one of the valley's most recognized landmarks. The upper valley falls within the Cova Ribeira da Torre Natural Park, protected for its steep terrain and traditional farming. Farmers still work small terraced plots here, growing sugarcane, coffee, yams, and bananas on ground too steep for anything but hand labor. Ridgelines fade into mist here. This is Serra Malagueta, a mountain range in the northern highlands of Santiago, Cape Verde. At 1,064 meters, its summit is the highest point in the north of the island. The range formed from volcanic activity between 2.9 and 2.4 million years ago, long before anyone lived on Santiago. Since 2005, the core of it has been protected as the Serra Malagueta Natural Park, spanning 774 hectares across 3 municipalities. It's one of only a few protected natural parks in the entire country. Inside the park grow 124 plant species, 28 of them found nowhere else on Earth. One shrub, the Carqueja de Santiago, exists only here, clinging to slopes between 500 and 800 meters. Vervet monkeys move through the undergrowth, and the rare Cape Verde purple heron nests somewhere in these folds of rock. Marked trails wind down more than 50 kilometers total, connecting the mountains to villages and the coast below. Black volcanic sand meets clear blue water here. This is Ribeira das Pratas, a small village on the northwestern coast of Santiago, Cape Verde. It sits about 7 kilometers southwest of Tarrafal, tucked into a coastal valley below arid hills that rise close to 400 meters. The sand gets its dark color from the island's basaltic lava, and locals sometimes call this stretch Silver Beach. Fishermen still launch their painted boats from here, much as they always have. Nearby, a natural pool carved into the volcanic rock offers another place to cool off after the walk down. Cape Verde is a destination that quietly wins your heart with its island charm, vibrant culture, and endless Atlantic horizons. Each island offers its own unique character, blending volcanic landscapes, golden beaches, colorful towns, and the soulful rhythms of local music. Life moves at a slower pace here, inviting travelers to embrace simple pleasures and unforgettable moments by the sea. Beyond its breathtaking scenery, Cape Verde leaves a lasting impression through the warmth, resilience, and hospitality of its people. When the journey comes to an end, you leave with more than beautiful memories. You carry the carefree spirit of Cape Verde wherever you go.